when I'm really frustrated about something and someone says, well, calm down. Well, don't you think I would if I could? I'd much rather you come to me and say, I got you. I feel that. Right. And we work with it together.
Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, the podcast for conscious parents, caregivers, and educators who believe tantrums aren't terrible. They are powerful opportunities for connection, growth, and learning during the first 5 years. You'll explore how to use intentional language to raise calm, confident, and deeply connected kids, because the way we talk to kids becomes how they see themselves and engage with the world. Hi, I'm your host, Cara Tyrrell, classroom teacher turned parent educator and teacher trainer. Are you ready to nurture your children's mind, body, and spirit? Welcome, Toddler Tribe. Let's transform the toddler years together. But before we dive in, I would love if you could do me a favor. Could you scroll on down, rate the show after you listen, and leave a review, ask a question, suggest a topic? This will help me know how to better serve you, who to bring in. It will also help friends find us, other moms who need to be hearing what we're talking about together. Okay, Toddler Tribe, you hear a lot about self-regulation and co-regulation and kids who are dysregulated versus regulated. What does this all even mean? And more importantly, how can you be a guide to their regulation journey? Today, my good friend Lisa is joining us on the show. She's a powerful educator and entrepreneur. Her nonprofit, Create Calm, has facilitated cultural shifts and deep healing for thousands of students, teachers, and families in hundreds of schools across the country since 2016. She has a master's degree in yoga and certification as an advanced educator and trainer. And she also has a bachelor's degree in psychology. She spent 30 years in ECE and is going to be a wealth of information for you today. Today, we're talking about energy, the literal energy that is in our bodies and we exude from our bodies. And Lisa guides us in a way of thinking about our littlest people's energy as the gateway to learning. Lisa, I am so excited you are here on the show with us today. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, to be in your energy and to share energy together. It's going to be so much fun.
Absolutely. I was saying before we hit record that I was looking so forward to this because I knew that your presence, even virtually, would give me an energy boost. And that's the topic of our show today as we think about little people being energetic beings. So I kind of just want to start right there. There is this phrase that is moving around in all the early childhood spaces right now, and parents are really tapping into this idea that emotions are energy in motion. It sounds really fun to say. It's like a little aha moment for a lot of us. But what does it really mean?
Oh my gosh, that's it's such a great question. And I have to tell you, I'm so excited that that conversation is actually happening in schools and homes now, because we've all sensed it and known it for a long, long time. But now we're finally talking about it. And I think that if we look at our littlest humans in their baby form, we can see what we're talking about here. When babies come into this world, it takes them many years to figure out how to communicate with us through words, right? And we recognize that what they're doing is communicating through energetics. They're reading the room, right? They're trying to express themselves to the room without any way to really communicate other than energetics. And there are those moments when they move their bodies and you feel the joy, or they tense their bodies and you feel the struggle. And I really think that babies are there to remind us that the energetics are the foundation of everything else. And they come into this world slowly figuring out their environment, really attuned to who they are on the inside. And they learn this way of being on the inside and the outside and balancing that. And I think that there's this great lesson for us in attuning to how we feel on the inside so that we can better connect on the outside.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's those, like that first year that you're describing, that teeny tiny space is so telling. If we are available to witness it and get curious and lean in. What's also true is it is the most overwhelming year for new parents and new caregivers. And so, because they're feeling so emotionally overwhelmed and physically overwhelmed, and honestly, because we're grown-ups, cognitively overwhelmed, it can easily be the most overlooked opportunity to tune in to a young human being's natural energy.
So true, so true. When we're called on to provide care for someone else, it's already a challenge to sort of, express what our needs are and to meet their needs. And with a little baby, knowing that it's a little bit more, we're needing to meet their needs, right? So there's even less feedback and support for us than we're used to in these relationships. And we tend to get all caught up in what it looks like. And it's those moments, I just got chills thinking about it and watching, I have a new grandbaby, and watching my son hold her. And it's not the structured learning, it's not the organized experiences, but it's watching their eyes connect. It's watching their embrace. And it's those moments of that silent connection that really matter, right? And that's what we want to do. We want to keep on building that. And that's what builds the trust for that little baby. Those are the moments that build a sense of safety. It's not what you feed me or whether you put socks on me or not. It's whether you look into my eyes and I feel safe and I feel consistently connected.
And connection is not quantifiable, which we try to quantify pretty much everything in those early days. And another thing that's so important for all of you out there, we say this in early childhood education all the time, is you need to connect before you can expect any skill building to happen. And so those early months, that first year, that's your connection point. All right, now let's move to toddlers, right? Because their energy and motion looks and sounds a little big.
A little bigger, a little... Yeah. I love toddlers because they're figuring out their bigness, and they're not figuring out our expectation that they not always be in their bigness, right? But I think if we sort of in the back of our heads keep this idea that they are still those little beautiful beings that we held, right? It's just we're holding more of an energetic space for them now. I was physically holding my baby. I am energetically holding my toddler, right? And as my little one has grown into this walking, speaking being, I now have the opportunity to coexist in a different way, right? And to actually get feedback from them. Most of, not to drag us down into the neuroscience, but, most of the connecting on a neurological level when they're little is baby mirroring us. But once we hit toddlers are trying to get us to mirror them too, right? And so isn't it fun to play with this idea that, who's the boss right now?
Yeah. Yes. And you know me, I love the neuroscience. So that's such an important point, right? The idea that as infants, they rely on us for everything. There is no autonomy in their world. And then as toddlers, they are stepping into a semi-autonomous space where they're practicing that sense of self. And I just love the irony of it because, you know, Piaget's theory of cognitive development. And he says at that point, they go all in. They are egocentric and everything is through their lenses.
Yes, absolutely. And I might say that we spend a lifetime trying to rein that in, right? We get it big as a toddler and from that point on, we're going, oh, okay, this is me. Oh, okay, that was too much me. Oh, there's not enough me.
Yes, that's exactly it. So I call this affect, the way that we show up, the energy that we bring to the room, the energy we bring to our interactions. And how do you coach parents and educators when there's an energy mismatch? Because we all bring our own. You know, I'm an outgoing, charismatic, like I enter the room and you know I'm there. And it's always been that way since tinyhood. Now, I had a kiddo who did not embody that energy. And so coming along with me was not an easy ride for her. And I tried to be super emotive and understanding, but like ultimately deep down, I really wanted to be able for her to see and experience the world the way I did. So how do you help people kind of normalize these energetic spaces?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say, isn't it interesting how we want folks to be able to see the world the way we do, but then the way we see the world is so complicated and hard sometimes, right? Well, why do we want someone else to see the way we do? But you're right. You know, the great thing about it is that we all come with our own energy. And there are times where it's really symbiotic and it moves and it feels really cool. I mean, you know, I've shared this with some of my clients that, you know, you'll walk into a room and sometimes, you know, you're feeling really good. You walk into that room and they're feeling good and you're like, yes, I've arrived. But also you could walk into the same room and 20 minutes later, the vibe is different. Let's say there was a conflict or something and you're mismatched energetically. And again, you know, those mirror neurons are trying to help us belong and connect. And I think that's what you wanted. You wanted that connection with your daughter, right? You wanted her to feel the same as you. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're wired to be that way.
Yeah.
But what happens then is I either need to shift me or you need to shift you so that we can feel together. That's what it seems. But maybe we can just be in that energetic state and explore the energy around what is going on and not try to create a sameness,
Yeah.
but enjoy a similar experience of the energetics.
Ooh. And you know, with little people, I find that to be so accessible because they are so malleable and they want to match a positive, joy-filled energy. That's what feels good to them since they just inhabit that space. You know, funny story. Recently, I taught professional development to some preschool teachers. And for the first time ever, we tried a model where the PD happened in June at the very end of the school year with an overlap, a carryover to working together in the fall. And I thought, this is going to be an interesting experiment. I've never done it this way before. And in an unexpected twist, the communication got a little jumbled. And these teachers weren't told that they had professional development on the last day of the school year. Exactly. Until the night before. And I was warned when I walked in, you might be walking into a tricky situation. And I said, because I'm not the same person that I was when my 20-year-old was an infant, right? I said, don't worry about a thing. And we allowed the frustration. We allowed the processing of the unexpected experience. And we normalized that made really good sense to feel that way before even trying to have a conversation around the topic. I wish that could be standard practice for interacting with small people, because that's what they're asking for. Let me feel my feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this notion of normalizing whatever is there and working with it. And in a lot of the yoga therapy sessions that I do with children, I sometimes would rather not hear what the diagnosis is or the story or what came with them to the studio or, whatever it was, and just become very present and feel what they feel. And then what I can do is, if I get a sense of how they feel, I can start to offer them a matched vibration so that I am normalizing through my energetics, right? Through my movement. So I will find a body movement that we can practice together that doesn't even require me to say anything. I just start moving and they move with me. But we share the energetics of whatever they're feeling. So it normalizes it and it pulls the attention off of them in regards to having to explain or feel comfort in or discomfort or whatever it is. And then we share the energy and we can dissipate it together. We can either lower it if it's been too big and uncomfortable, or in some cases, and this is something I tried to stress in my book, is in some cases, the energy is really low, right? There's a quietness, there's a softness, there's a heaviness. And we can even engage movements that move us up in energy too, right? So even though a lot of our attention as parents is on the frenetic, how do I get them quiet and still? But, a lot of times too, there's a sadness or a worry or, some of these lower level vibrations that I want to meet them there too. And I want to help them move up. But either way, I can, if I'm tuned into myself enough and I can center myself, I can go into that engagement with that child and say, oh, here's where the energy is. I'm going to put myself out there energetically to match them so that there's an acceptance and a safe space for us to be in that energy. And then I'm going to play with more movements and more breathing to bring us to a centered space where we become regulated. And then once we're regulated, we're connected on that level, then we can move in whatever direction we want to.
So that is one of the best descriptions I've heard about co-regulating. And when people talk about that, they use first of all, regulation happens in the limbic system, right? So that's the part of our brain that is processing feelings. And when people talk about this with me, their questions are always, well, what can I say to help my child or to help my students in a co-regulation process? Now, words matter, but they're the last line of defense, not the first line of defense, especially when someone's in such a heavy emotional state. They need emotions met with emotion before they can have logic met with logic.
Yes. My favorite reference is when I'm really frustrated about something and someone says, well, calm down. Well, don't you think I would if I could? I'd much rather you come to me and say, I got you. I feel that. Right. And we work with it together. And I don't want us to stay there. That's the other thing is, I don't want to yank them into my frustration and to stay in my frustration. So I might need some help getting out of it. But I know that there's a widening of tolerance that happens the more often my feelings are met with acceptance and given a platform to rest on before I can untangle it all.
Yes. Oh, that's so interesting. All right. So you just got my brain a-whirring. So we talk a lot about early childhood with, Vygotsky's theory and that zone of learning that requires friction for skill building. But I hear you saying that it requires friction to develop a sense of self and the ability to tolerate feelings so we can self-regulate.
Yes. I think that's exactly it. Is, there's this challenge of, you get a necklace and it ties in a knot. And if you pull on the ends, you make the knot tighter, right? So that's too much friction. But if you kind of push and pull on it, then eventually it starts to unwind, right? And you start to have some room to play with it. And it's in the playing with it that you can go, oh, I see how to untangle it, right? And so you're right. This friction is needed it gives us the reference point for the unwinding.
And I loved how you referenced tolerance, because tolerance can be a good thing. I'll share, at the time of this recording, I am writing my book and I am weeks away from a first deadline. And every morning I wake up refreshed and ready to go and feeling like I have got this. And every night I am saying to my husband, I'm not sure how to tolerate this stress. I'm working at it. I'm using all my best mindset hacks. And I know deep down I will get this done and say I did that. But right now the feeling is overwhelming. And so we ride this roller coaster. And I feel like sometimes we expect kids to always be in a positive, regulated state. And that's not even very healthy, is it?
Absolutely. First of all, it's not being human. But right. And I'll share with you a story from when I went to visit my kids' elementary school one time. I went to parent back to school night, and they had us follow our kids' little schedule and go to some of the specials and things. And they had us walking silently through the halls. We weren't allowed to speak when we walked through the halls, and we weren't allowed to speak in class, and we weren't allowed, and I just, by the end of teacher night, I said, I couldn't be in elementary school, right? That pressure to conform and comply was brutal. And I had, like you said, I had a lot of skills. I have a big toolkit of mindfulness tools and ways that I can keep myself steady. And that was one of the big realizations for me of the importance of allowing the energy to be, allowing the imperfections to be, and almost celebrate them. Because if you had not said, oh my goodness, I'm at the end, I don't know if I can do this, then you wouldn't have been able to step in to yourself and say, wait a minute, I think I have this, right? And to be empowered to be your biggest, most beautiful self, right?
Yeah, and it is a journey that most adults are taking on. Let me rephrase. It's a journey that if adults choose to take it on, they are undoing and spending so much energy going back to, unpack and decode all of those early experiences that created that emotional foundation. And it's big work. And so we run around, you and I, saying, if we could just, look at things through a we lens, even though these people are so tiny compared to us, we're going to give them the opportunity to build their who-ness and never doubt it along the way. The storms will come. The challenges come. That's life. But if you can stand up and say, I know who I am, and I know how I challenge myself and how I tackle hard things, then the storms get a little bit easier.
Yeah, I'd like to share with you, when I was a mom of young children, I had this perspective that I was supposed to impart my wisdom, right? I was supposed to manage my children and I was supposed to, somehow help them become people. And in my personal growth, but also in my work as a therapist, I came to understand that I'm a platform and my children landed here in this world in my lap or on my head or on my shoulders, wherever it was. And as long as I stay steady, that's all they need because then they can launch.
It's so beautiful.
Right. And so I just want every parent out there to know that, to me, the most magical gift you can give your children is to just stay grounded and present and be a platform and let them blossom into their who-ness. Let them be imperfectly, beautifully, enormous in who they are, and just know that it's enough that you just held on to them.
Yes. And that never goes away. It is, you and I both have adult children, and we know what that looks like in the toddler years, in the early elementary years, in those middle school, high school years, and in the flourishing adult years. And for me, there is such joy in helping my kids see that life is not linear, that just because you're older than she is doesn't mean that your path is supposed to be further along than hers is. And that's our personal experience in this household, and the freedom that they feel knowing that we're not keeping score based on how old they are or when they graduated or what skill set they do or don't have yet is so, brings us right back to the beginning. It reestablishes every time the connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the way we want to be connected, right? We want to be connected to their wholeness. When I lead children's yoga teacher trainings, I always say, they're the same-sized cells in little bodies.
Yes.
Right? We're all the same-sized cells. And if we can just remember that and connect in that space of respect and reciprocity and belonging, it's going to be great.
It really is. And it is not nearly as complicated as we choose to make it. Lisa, you have put 30 years of experience, your psychology degree, your yoga instruction into an amazing book. So could you just tell us briefly about this book and who it's for and where they can go get it?
Yes, thank you for asking. It has been really, hearing you talk about the pressures of writing your book. I know I've been there, but my book has, as I'm sure yours is too, is really just a project from my heart. And it is the opportunity to share 30 years of mistakes, 30 years of luck, and 30 years of some really, really focused skill building. And my hope in the book is that I can share with people really practical and accessible information about the nervous system and information about mindfulness and movement and the science behind why movement actually makes our brains grow and how movement and breathing and meditation can actually help us to feel in control by letting go of control. And I'm really, really excited because, a lot of folks have said, why creating calm in your classroom? Well, it's mostly because I was an early childhood educator for 20 some years and I'm still in classrooms. But also, I feel like for children, every moment of their lives is a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Home is a classroom. The streets are a classroom. The supermarket's a classroom. The playground's a classroom. The academic building that we call school is a classroom. And so these tools are really something that you can very easily stick in your pocket, learn in your body, share in the classroom that is life.
Absolutely. Parents are a child's first teacher, so your houses are your classrooms. All right. So it is called Creating Calm in Your Classroom, and we will have the link in the show notes for you to easily go click and get your copy. And we're talking to all of you, parents, caregivers, grandparents, teachers, whether maybe you're a teacher in training and this is something you just really want to ground yourself in. So when you start, you start the way you want to finish. So Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. This conversation has done exactly what I expected. It's grounded me and lifted me up at the exact same time.
Well, Cara, it has been a pleasure. I really, really enjoyed having this conversation with you.
All right. For all of you out there in our toddler tribe, you know what to do. Stay mindful and proactive as we transform the toddler years.